Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's 1 million by 1 million strategy roundtable for entrepreneurs. 1M by 1M, as you know, is the first and only global virtual accelerator. And our mission is to help 1 million entrepreneurs reach $1 million and beyond in annual revenue. And in support of that mission, we've been doing these online virtual roundtables. We've done it 476 times since 2008, and today we are doing the 477th one under very strange circumstances, with tremendous anxiety in the air. So my message, and we've been talking to all our entrepreneurs, the members in the premium program. Yesterday we had a session, similar session to this, but members only. The message I have been trying to reinforce is stay the course, don't freeze, try to keep things moving. We are all working from home. We in any case work from home, but everybody right now is working from home, and everybody should be working from home. If you're not working from home, you should be working from home. But the flip side of that is everybody is still trying to work. Everybody is still trying to maintain whatever degree of normalcy is possible under these conditions. So people want to work, people want to stay engaged, people want to keep things moving. So on the receiving end of your outreaches, whether it's outreach to customers, outreach to partners, potential partners, outreach to potential investors, all of that should continue. Things will slow down. Response rate may slow down. Decision-making time will slow down. But in every single sales cycle, there is a market education of investors, education of customers, education of partners that is involved, which doesn't need to slow down. Whether you do that through content marketing, whether you do that through, what the formula, the methodology that we follow here is, we call it Sales 2.0. There's a whole module that teaches that methodology of B2B selling, whether you're following that or whatever else you're following, any kind of digital marketing, whatever else you're following. You need to tweak your messaging. You need to, pay attention to how you message your outreaches, but you do need to keep things moving. So I'm sure everybody in different parts of the world, our footprint is global, so people are in different parts of the world. In Europe, there's really a very, very serious situation going on in parts of America, including where we are. The Bay Area is in complete lockdown, and there is right now the curve is in escalation mode. So you hear that China has managed to slow things down to a very desirable place. So hopefully, a few weeks down the road, we are going to get there. We have Europe is going to get there. I'm very concerned about India. We have a huge Indian audience here. I'm very, very concerned about India. It hasn't really shown a huge uptick yet, but cases are being discovered. So we need to stay extremely cautious, because India, as you know, is a very dense, especially the urban India situation is extremely dense population. Social distancing is going to be really difficult. So it worries me tremendously, but here we are. Let's focus a little bit, take our minds off coronavirus and focus a bit on our businesses. So this event is being recorded. Recordings of every single roundtable are available on our YouTube channel. You can, right now everybody has time. So if you're trying to fill that time with constructive things that can help you learn and, enhance your knowledge of how to navigate your startup, this is a good body of work to go tap into. Also, through our Twitter channels, we publish a lot of enriching content. 1M and @Romana are the two handles that we publish through. Today, if you're live tweeting, use hashtag 1M1M. These are the call-in instructions. This is a roundtable, not a broadcast. We want to hear from you. We want you to participate as much as possible. We have some scheduled programming. We'll go through that first, but then we will be opening up the line for as much Q&A as you wish for. And I encourage you to share what your anxieties are. What is it that you're struggling with? What is top of mind? And I will do my best to brainstorm with you on how to address those situations from a business point of view. We are going to start this session with a conversation with Elly Truesdell from Almanac Insights Fund. Welcome to the show. You have to correct me if I'm pronouncing your name right or wrong. Elly or Eli?
Yes, Elly, you've got that right.
Okay, good. All right. Well, Elly, let's introduce you to our audience. Tell us a bit about Almanac Insights as well as yourself, and let's get us acquainted.
Great. Thank you for having me, and I really appreciate that introduction, as this is just a completely unprecedented time, and I think you're right that anxiety is high, but it's nice to try to have a conversation that will be, in the future worthwhile. Yeah, very much. We're all working on this in real time, so I think the questions will be especially interesting today. But yeah, some information about Almanac Insights. We are a venture fund out of New York City, founded by David Barber, who is also the co-founder of the Blue Hill Restaurants and Stone Barn Center for Food and Agriculture, which for anyone who's really into restaurants knows that they're one of the top 50 restaurants in the world every year. They've been considered very much thought leaders in sustainable agriculture, soil health, gastronomy. And so David founded the fund in having really created this amazing ecosystem in and around those restaurants and the working farm and agriculture center, just because there are so many interesting people coming through there connected to food, agriculture, and finance. And I feel lucky to have known David for many years. My background is that I was with Whole Foods Market for almost 10 years, the majority of my career, in a really interesting role where I was dedicated to finding the next biggest brand and sort of the most interesting, trending new food and beverage products to go on our shelves. And so I was with the company from 2008 to 2017. So as you can imagine, my timing was perfect in terms of what I consider sort of to be the golden age or the heyday of natural food consumer goods. Really when all of the... Yeah. So a lot of the sort of most exciting challenger brands were coming on at that time. And after years of being in the role, I sort of became the person you came to if you wanted to launch your products at Whole Foods. And so by the time I left Whole Foods, I was the global director of local brands and product innovation and had touched and worked with hundreds of young companies, businesses, farms to help them grow and scale their product lines in our stores. And David, so a pretty interesting sort of background and probably pretty untraditional in terms of the investors that you have on, which brings a unique perspective around retail, brand, strategy. And along the way, I had known David, my now boss. He and his brother and team at Blue Hill launched a yogurt brand with me. So we've known each other, and he was really excited about launching this fund with sort of the same food philosophy that we shared at Whole Foods. And we are, I guess I should say, focused strictly on food and agriculture as a fund. We're a $30 million venture fund, and we're looking to make transformative, positive change in and across the food system, but sort of recognize that the work sometimes done at Stone Barn Center and even at Whole Foods doesn't reach everyone. So we're interested in it doesn't have to be just the perfection, ideal, food business that is only touching a very, very small portion, but we're trying to sort of make more available, cleaner ingredients, better supply chains, higher quality standards to more people.
Interesting, very interesting. So can you synthesize what is it that you look for in your investments? How do you decide what is, investment worthy in your ecosystem?
Yeah, I think that's such an interesting question, especially today and even in what's happened in the past few weeks and months, is I really think about investments as what are we seeing that has true value and sort of long-term sustainable, and when I say that word, maintained value. And that is, for us, because we look strictly at food, beverage, and agriculture, both in terms of consumer goods, but we also look at technologies, hospitality, retail formats that support that system. I think what we really care about is this offering something new, differentiated, and really has a positioning or perspective that is offering new access, that is bringing cleaner, higher integrity products or production methods to more people. So that's a huge part of the thesis and approach. And I think this moment is sort of forcing everyone to think what's really necessary, what is critical. But even beyond that, I think I'm reminding people who own businesses that don't feel quote unquote essential. There's still also what's enriching, what's moving us forward, and what is bringing a higher value to life, even if a non-critical essential. And so I've actually been really reflecting on that the past few days in trying to give entrepreneurs advice and just trying to stay positive throughout all of this, that, organic products and food sold in a way that is more transparent with cleaner supply chains and where you can really gain a sense of trust and value is going to become even more important throughout and post, COVID-19.
So let me ask you a question that obviously comes to your mind as you're, thinking about supply chains. In your industry, in the food beverage industry, how do you see geography playing out? I take it you invest mostly in American companies, yes?
Yes, primarily American companies. We have recently made our first investment in a Canadian company called Scout Canning, and we're certainly open to and will look at companies abroad and internationally. I think where we really like to make sure we're positioning ourselves is to add value. So when we've shown interest or have considered foreign or international investments has been when that company is looking to launch in the U.S. and where we could actually serve a role. So if there are, if we're being pitched by a European or South American company that is strictly doing business in those countries, we don't necessarily bring much value or strategic input, and so we want to make sure that there's a reason for us to invest.
So those that want to come to America to sell to the American market are interesting to you because of your connections in the distribution channel.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in that context, then, how are you going to look at supply chains that are tied to China, supply chains that are tied to Europe, supply chains that are tied, especially going forward, to places where there has been a ravaging because of coronavirus and the risks that it has, made visible?
Yeah, I think it's something that has been catapulted into our just consciousness of needing to do a lot more research and education around where we can feel trust, where and how we can, put levels of transparency throughout the supply chain. So rather maybe for right now than even thinking about Chinese supply chains or what's coming out of there, looking more, and we've sort of been getting ahead of this as demonstrated by a couple of our portfolio companies of really investing in farming that is more local or that is indoor tech enabled, has really controlled inputs, and where the consumer is especially connected, so you can really be aware of everything that's going into that piece of food that's coming to you. So I think we'll probably double down on that thesis that indoor and tech enabled smart farms can play a real role in the future, beyond just sort of what's new and cool, but actually that has true value in sort of times of uncertainty.
Are you going to be looking for supply chains that are contained within North America going forward?
I don't think I would go that far. I will say that the investment we just made that I mentioned, Scout Canning, which is a North American seafood company that's focused on canning as their preservation method and packaging method in a commitment to ocean health, avoiding microplastics, et cetera. And that was part of our the impetus, and what made it especially interesting is recognizing, and in terms of global trade environments and even pre-recognition of how intense this corona and COVID spread would be, recognizing that there was a real reason to have available and focus on North American supply. That said, that was sort of one particular reason to make that investment, along with many others. But I think we've just got to look at a lot more closely, and I wouldn't want to rule out European supply chains at this point by any means. I will say for many years, and for good reason, there is a lot to be mindful of in terms of Chinese supply and different levels of food safety, different inputs that for many people who have the choice, they wouldn't want to be putting that in their body. So that I think we've always been aware of.
Mm-hmm. You brought up technology. So, our accelerators work is almost exclusively in technology and technology-enabled services. So I want to talk about technology from two angles in your portfolio strategy. Number one is on the production side. So what kind of information technology usage are you seeing, innovative information technology usage are you seeing in the production of food?
Sure. It's pretty amazing to see how much development and innovation there's been in terms of technologies that support the overall food system, and where we've really focused our efforts, and as an example, in terms of two of our indoor farm investments, we've invested in Smallhold, which is a mushroom-focused indoor farm concept, and Bowery, which is a much larger vertical indoor farm, highly sophisticated technologies for greens and other vegetable crops. Smallhold has a really interesting pitch in that they call their concept distributed farming. So they sort of recognize that on average, you, the consumer, were allowing your produce to basically be dying, decaying, rotting, as they would say, for 15 days before it gets to you on a retailer shelf, on average. For mushrooms and the mushrooms they grow, they have built and developed this concept for micro farms set in retail stores. So their first Whole Foods relationship is the first certified organic farm within a grocery store in the US that's growing certified organic mushrooms on a substrate right in the store to be seen. And so they, as the farmers, are beginning the grow out process of mushrooms on a substrate, which, as far as mushrooms go, is any number of things. It's sawdust, it's coffee grounds, and they deliver it to the store still growing. So prior to and 7 days before harvest, once it reaches their maturity, those mushrooms can be harvested in store and sold that day. So there's a lot on the back end of that. Those micro farms, as well as the macro farms, are collecting thousands of data points a day to really understand the best environments to grow the most nutrient-dense mushrooms, to grow the most efficient, and to reduce and seriously cut down on their energy and water usage, which is a little easier with mushrooms. But those types of systems, I think, are extremely thoughtful and allow, really, I think, will play a role in the future for us to understand how do you grow this much fresh produce in proximity at scale and hopefully highly efficiently to sort of feed a growing population. And then I think one other example of where we're really noting some technologies, which is becoming more and more important, is as a result of nutrient density and the quality of fresh produce and foods. There's some pretty scary statistics about the decline and decrease in nutrient density in the past 50 years. And so I think whether everyday shoppers are aware of it or not, we've identified several companies that we're really interested in that offer technologies that can scan different items of produce. One particular company has cataloged sort of the top 15 items that's being banned, spinach, strawberry, sort of the top items that people would buy at a grocery store, and are collecting thousands of data points per supplier so that you can understand when you're buying an apple from Washington versus buying an apple from New Zealand and anywhere in between, what sort of impact that has on the actual nutrients and makeup of that piece of produce. And we're really interested in that just because I think that just connects to so many of the issues that climate change, intense pesticide use and residues, the effect on microbial growth in the soil. There's so much that's sort of integrated into and resulting in the reason for that type of company. So we're looking a lot at those. And there are several. There are a lot of spectrometers, which are these at-home devices that you can sort of scan your own piece of produce at home. And there are some that are more B2B services, and we're looking across.
Okay. So switching gears, so on the usage of technology on the brand building and distribution side, of course, you come from the traditional retail background of Whole Foods. How does e-commerce play into this? What are the trends? How are you playing into those trends?
Yeah, I think we try to stay very aware of, food being such a traditional and in many cases very archaic system. And so I think we try to find the balance between, and I sort of honor, respect the fact that it is a traditional business, and in certain ways and parts of the system, it sort of still needs to be in terms of just how food is handled and its perishability and the people who really understand it. And sort of there is an operational piece that's still somewhat old school, traditional, and important. And then there's some real need and attention being paid to where can we modernize this, where we can enable and put tech behind better distribution, better, more rapid logistics to get people food faster, fresher, safer. So we look at a lot of those things. And I think one thing that sort of jumped out from that question that we're really focused on is access and sort of newer channels of distribution. Very often, as I was leaving Whole Foods, so this is end of 2017, early 2018, there was such a shift, and I was recognizing, just a major evolution in terms of where people were buying, consuming food. Certainly in America, I think sometimes Europeans or people from other parts of the world come over and see where and how Americans eat anywhere, anytime, and they're a little horrified. But it is the reality of America. You can buy food easily in your office space, in airports, in public spaces, in and at events. And so we recognize as a fund that tapping into those modes of distribution and where are those access points offering people healthier, better options? Because for so long, it had been vending machines. It's candy, it's processed, heavily ultra-processed packaged foods. And now there really is a system and a set of infrastructure being built out to sort of provide fresher, better access to better foods.
Give me an example from your portfolio where you've seen really interesting use of technology, internet, smartphones, apps, etc., to build a brand or beverage brand.
I think that immediately, as far as our portfolio, Sweet Green, which is an amazing salad concept, but a fast casual, quick serve hospitality concept, is just, they've done such a phenomenal job to leverage their technology to the point that they will often almost describe themselves as a technology company. I don't actually think that that's quite accurate, and I wouldn't want it to be. They are a phenomenal and just highly sophisticated, fresh and prepared foods company that has utilized and leveraged tech to propel their business model forward in a way that's really been remarkable. That's in terms of their delivery, pickup, and now what they're calling their third-party spaces. So they have outposts all over New York City and other cities across the country where you are not walking into a Sweetgreen salad store, but you're able to order through your office space, through your apartment building, through your co-working space, and have that salad ready for you for pickup at a certain time. They've done great work through their own development of their own app. They have never relied on an Uber Eats or a DoorDash. That is sort of up for discussion at this point. But they've been very, very progressive and forward-thinking in terms of how they utilize technology, and it shows as, otherwise just sort of a salad concept, but they've really been able to elevate themselves based on their tech.
Very interesting, because this is a conversation that is happening in the e-commerce world extensively right now, where brands are trying to figure out what is their how much money do they spend on acquiring customers for their website, their direct shop fronts online, versus going through Amazon and other marketplaces basically. And you're kind of raising the question or addressing the issue from the point of view of food vendors, restaurants, etc., and what role does DoorDash or Uber Eats and all these in other countries there are things like Zomato and delivery and so on and so forth. It's all that whole delivery ecosystem. How do you go to market? What is the more effective way to go to market? How do you differentiate and so on? So it'll be interesting to see what you find in after there's more data. Right now there is not as much data, but in a while there's going to be more data, and then that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, and I do the one thing in terms of this moment in time, which will continue for however many months. I'm going to be really curious how, in terms of food and food purchases, how much this does propel and shift or accelerate the willingness of people across the country to order their food directly and use e-commerce sites. I think it's of course been adopted and widely adopted, but still there's, in terms of food compared to other industries, and for good reason, there's been less of that exponential curve. And so you wonder if almost by necessity and out of fear, people are starting to order more directly to their homes, and if they'll just, maintain that habit post-COVID, there will be a lot of interesting shifts, and we're sort of aware of that and watching our own businesses and portfolio. I had an interesting conversation yesterday, sort of to this point, with a young woman who is an entrepreneur. She is a still pretty young and fledgling business that is a variety of gluten-free and allergen-free cookies, truffles, and brownies that are refrigerated. And so she was all set, ready to go, launching with the key retailers across, New York City and the Northeast, and was trying to make the decision whether or not to go forward with that channel strategy as of yesterday. And I'm talking to her yesterday, and we both just sort of said, it doesn't feel like the time to be doing that. You don't want to extend your cash at this moment toward, free fill, because that's a requirement. Just when you're starting out in stores, you're giving a lot of free product to get it out on shelves. And it just doesn't feel like at the moment that someone's walking into a grocery store and buying something for $8 they've never tried before. So we just sort of were talking through, should you pivot? Should you be really focused right now on direct-to-consumer sales? And, so I think ever more, everyone always has to be nimble and flexible in building a young company, but I think this circumstance is going to really command that.
Well, I think one trend that is most likely to last even after we settle down from this nightmare is people will probably not want to go into crowded spaces a lot. I think that's psychology for society in general. I think we have hit an inflection point where people will not want to be in crowds as much.
Yeah.
So I think online ordering and delivery of food may very well be a much more prevalent phenomenon going forward. than what we have seen until now.
Yeah.
I mean, personally, I've always loved going to the grocery store and actually looking at the produce and picking one by one which ones I like. And yes, I mean, absolutely, but I think it will be this desire for tactile selection of produce is going to be balanced by people's desire to not be in crowded spaces.
Absolutely. And you wonder then if technology maybe can play a role in, if you are relying on someone else or a third party to be doing that picking for you, maybe there will become much more sophisticated ways, because I'm the same. I really prefer to select my own produce. And of course, I that's so much a part of my life. And I have always wanted there to be a better option when I don't feel like I have the time to be doing that. So maybe there will be some added layers of transparency, or even, you walking your personal shopper through and selecting together.
Yeah. Are you familiar with, I imagine you are, a company called ButcherBox?
Yes.
So I did a story on ButcherBox, the entrepreneur. We have this entrepreneur journey series where we invite people who have built successful companies to tell their stories in lots of detail on exactly how they've put one foot before the other. And what struck me in the ButcherBox story was that this is a bootstrap company. They have not raised financing, at least the point at which when I did the story. I don't know if they've raised financing since. But he said one of the things that he faces in talking to investors, even though it's a very successful company, it's a subscription business model, et cetera, all these good things, is that it is a perishable product.
Mm-hmm.
How do you view, in your business, how do you view lots of food companies are selling perishable products, unless you're only focusing on food items that are canned and served?
Yeah, it is the biggest challenge of and for the industry, and I say that just not to be sort of dismissed or overlooked, but when you look at Amazon, they have not been able to figure that out and still rely on Whole Foods to handle, for the most part, their fresh and perishable deliveries, ordering, handling. You looked at Campbell's. Campbell's made a huge investment in and across a fresh food company, Bolthouse Farms, and they eventually had to divest all of those assets because they didn't know how to properly support the perishability. So there is a real need for, and again, I think this moment really could have or sort of accelerate the interest and tackling of that challenge to how do we properly handle perishable foods, get them to people quickly enough, avoid spoilage, maintain and have more highly sophisticated systems to avoid food waste and perishability that really hasn't been mastered. And I think, that is where a lot of retailers who have been doing this for decades and many, many years have sort of a better handle on it almost than anyone else instinctually. And there's not a lot of tech or sophistication behind it. So something we think about a lot. We are actively and always looking at perishable goods because by nature they're almost always better for you than shelf-stable foods, and so there's a real need to figure out that loop, particularly as we find consumers are less and less willing to cook at home. So that ready-to-eat and freshly prepared meals is such a growing category, and there's a real need to understand how do we reduce waste, how do we get this to people more efficiently.
So let me tell you what my thoughts are on this one. You will find this interesting, and what you just said actually even more confirms what I concluded about this issue. In 1Mby1M, our philosophy is to help 1 million entrepreneurs reach $1 million and beyond in annual revenue. We're not trying to fund 1 million companies. We acknowledge the fact that over 99% of the entrepreneurs out there will need to build their businesses in a bootstrapped manner. the venture scale of going from zero to $100 million in 5 to 7 years of building very scalable companies does not apply to most businesses. And I think this fresh food or perishable food category is one of those, which lends itself very well to building small businesses. And small businesses, meaning they could be $5 million, $10 million businesses that could be serving specific communities or could be serving online with, distribution that grows organically and, slowly, but not in this like exponential hockey stick curve kind of mode. And as far as I'm concerned, that's okay. One of our favorite grocery stores in the Bay Area is Sigona's, which actually, there are 2 locations, one at Stanford Shopping Center, but the one that we go to a lot is the one in Redwood City across from the Costco store. Redwood City Costco is a massive store, and Sigona's is right across from them, and I think it's a very common behavior of people buying a certain amount of stuff at Costco and then going to Sigona's to buy, fresh produce, few things that are really great. And Sigona's is a small company. It's always going to be a small company. What's wrong with that? As long as they're producing great stuff and bringing great stuff, great value to the consumers. That's kind of the message that we give in 1Mby1M is it's okay to build smaller companies as well.
Absolutely, and I think it's very relevant when you talk about the food business and a certain level of quality and integrity. I think another grocer that comes to mind or a retailer that has followed that model is Erewhon in LA, in Los Angeles. They only have 5 storefronts, small, focused heavily on prepared foods and otherwise on organics and a lot of alternatives. And I will say it's a very expensive market, but the level of care and retail standards and food quality is the best in the country from what I've seen, and I definitely look at this stuff quite a bit. And so there's a real reason and value in maintaining a certain size in order to retain the integrity of your product. And I think that's always a really important reminder. It was always really interesting as so many generalist investors and particularly tech investors got into food as there's been so much interest. I think it was a real rude awakening to say these businesses don't scale like tech companies, and they can't and they shouldn't based on perishability, freshness, how to actually grow and scale effectively and retain that integrity. It's a real difference in terms of business model.
Tech venture investors should not be getting into everything because they tend to behave like hammers and they think everything is a nail, and this is not a nail that can be hammered out like that.
Yeah, certainly the natural food and beverage world experienced that quite a bit in the past 2 years. There's been just a real, unfortunately, probably a necessary downturn, and many businesses that we knew that saw, very high valuations who have gone through major down rounds and are consolidating and are, refocusing on profitability and whatnot. That's had a real effect. So yes, it's had its, and that will, of course, hopefully the ones who were preparing even earlier for profitability are going to weather this storm. The ones that haven't been, it's going to be really, really interesting.
Yeah. On the positive side of the influence of tech, Facebook has created this enormous micro-targeting capability. So I often get fed advertisements on Facebook of these, home chefs from various ethnicities. I'm originally from Calcutta, India, which is actually a part of India that really prides itself for a very specialized cuisine. It's not the Indian cuisine that you eat at restaurants, but it's a very specialized cuisine. And Indian regional cuisine is quite specialized. So I see these ads coming to me from Bay Area home chefs who are creating this very specialized regional Indian ethnic cuisine, and they're basically micro-targeting, and I happen to fall in their micro-targeting target. So that, I think, is great for small Small
Yes.
entrepreneurs to build businesses.
Absolutely, yes. And you're right. I mean, that's the reason there has been such an amazing support system for these businesses to grow, and some that were really needed and have been able to take advantage of not just selling into grocery stores where they're very quickly a lot is asked of you in terms of plotting fees, and it's just one of these traditional and old systems that is really capital intense. And so, yes, Facebook and Instagram and a lot of other tech services have provided a whole new both marketing platform and distribution platform, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, wonderful conversation, Elly. This is, so contemporary, so, directly influencing our lives on a day-to-day basis. Right now, in this self-quarantine mode, we are cooking every other day and eating lots of good food and making that a part of the quarantine process. Things that we always eat home-cooked food, but, the frequency at which we are cooking is much higher right now.
Well, that could be one silver lining. If more Americans start to cook during this time, that could be a really good thing.
Yeah, and this cooking going out of society is a very bad trend. I think it's absolutely terrible.
Agreed.
All right. Well, thank you for coming, Elly. Look forward to keeping in touch, and let's see what happens.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. Take care.
Sure. Okay. Well, we have an entrepreneur pitch coming up next. Folks, if you're presenting today or in another session, I just want to set some expectations. We are completely on your side. This is a safe working session. You can bring whatever it is that you're struggling with, and we will work on it together and try to find solutions to your issues. If you disagree with my feedback, that's perfectly okay. No problem. It's your venture. You will decide what you want to do. But remember, the feedback I give you is based on a lot of experience. So you can't discount that feedback. You need to consider that feedback and then decide how you're going to deal with the issues that I am presenting to you. Remember one thing, not all businesses can raise money. You just heard me talk about this with Elly. Not all businesses can raise money. Not all businesses should raise money. And raising money doesn't guarantee success. This is a fact. This is a non-negotiable fact. There are fundability criteria to business. Okay, Nikolaj Vestorp from Thisted, Denmark. Did I pronounce all that right, Nikolaj?
Yes, you did.
All right.
Rama.
What are you working on? And how are things in Denmark? What is this condition right now?
First of all, we are pretty much in a lockdown. People are home from school.
And is the curve rising or flattening? What's the situation? I haven't tracked the numbers there.
Yeah, right now, today I haven't, but it has been increasing a lot, then starting to flat a little bit. But right now, not all people are getting tested, we should remember. So the curve is much bigger than we actually know because lack of testing at the start, and it's already penetrated so much. So I think all elderly should be very careful, and let's see what happens. They're working on medicine and vaccines and everything.
Yes, of course. All right, tell us about what you're working on.
Yeah, okay. I've been working on MarketKoin for the last 2.5 years with my team in Indonesia. And if I should start right now, it has actually never been easier to turn on a mobile app or a desktop solution and be in control of your own finances. And in the recent years, we have seen that technology has changed the basic of front office banking, opening up account utilizations, and market access to users in new ways. And now we see that the Internet of Value is coming, and people talk about that the monopoly on money has been broken with Bitcoin. And everything is really interesting at the moment. So we have been building this digital asset exchange, and it's high profit potential and a barely tapped explosive market. And I'm the co-founder together with Fabian. Yeah, and right now the problems with the current exchanges is there's profit pressure for operators, still lack of partnerships with the financial industry. There's the cost pressure for clients, meaning they have to pay very high fees. So this is both on market taker, market maker, and withdrawal fee, and we want to lower that. And we see that the bid-ask spread is too high, so the exchanges need more liquidity. We also need that right now. Right now there's a limit. It's limited to traditional assets all across. We start seeing banks opening up, but there's still quite a low awareness of cryptocurrency and the financial inclusion potential it has. And the Indonesian digital market is too limited. It's not offering really good gateways. Crypto community is still too concentrated in Jakarta, the capital city, and the exchanges are not open for foreigners. So European people, American people, and UK citizens cannot enter exchanges in Indonesia. We have positioned ourselves up here that we have really low fee and high quality. And right now the market consists of a few players, with some local Indonesian exchanges being our biggest competitors. And then we also start to see more well-known exchanges that have just entered the Indonesian market. Our value proposition is what we call the MarketKoin effect. And the MarketKoin effect is all about scalability and interoperability with time. So right now we are in phase 1. We could call it the engine. We have a cryptocurrency exchange. We can list coins. And we have a payment gateway, so merchants and users can convert Bitcoin and crypto to fiat instantly. And then we want to scale up. We want to have 2 exchanges, so we can start doing arbitrage. We can start up remittance service between countries. We see there's a lot of remittances in Indonesia, in and out, especially to Indonesia. So a lot of Indonesians, they go out, work in the world, and they need to send their money back. Right now it's very expensive. And then we are...
Nikolaj, I want to give you one piece of feedback on this slide. This slide should not be done as a vertical pyramid.
Okay.
Because it's actually misleading. Pyramids do well when you're building one on top of the other. This, what you're talking about, is actually a funnel.
Yeah.
So you should do it as a horizontal, starting with phase 1 to the left corner, and then if you just rotate this pyramid 90 degrees, you may have what you're looking for.
Yeah. Okay, like the Big Bang, starting out from nothing and expanding.
So, I mean, if you position this as a pyramid, it took me a few seconds to figure out what's going on here, and then I realized what you're trying to do, and I would just present it as just flip it 90 degrees, and you should have what you need, what you look for, and adjust the slide accordingly. So then comes the question: what is the duration of phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3? How long will it take you to get through phase 1? How long will it take you to get through phase 2, phase 3? So is phase 1 a 5-year strategy, phase 2 a 7-year strategy, phase 3 a 10-year strategy, or what is the time frame?
Yeah, our time frame is that we have one exchange and we have listed coins. So actually phase 1 is ready now. What we need right now is that we need to scale up into the Indonesian market, but we also want to scale up to another country so we can start doing this arbitrage. I think that we can go to phase 2 in maybe half a year after we will get an investment.
And when you say your phase 1 is ready, the exchange is ready, how many Indonesian consumers are on the exchange? How much activity do you have?
Yeah, that's the big problem. We have right now, we only have around 150 users. We launched.
So this is the question really. Phase 1 being ready technically is not the answer to my question. The question I asked you is, how long would it take you to create a thriving exchange? So phase 1 is not just technology. Phase 1 is technology and go to market. So how long will it take you, and what is the strategy to get people transacting on your exchange. Without that, phase one is not complete.
Yeah, but I agree. Okay, here's a small competitive analysis where we compare our exchange with some other exchanges. And we will have broker service. We will have an open order exchange. We have a trading platform ready. Right now, we have listed 4 cryptocurrencies. Have a payment gateway.
If you were to pick one differentiating factor for why Indonesian consumers would pick MarketKoin versus any other option, what would that be?
We are faster, we use better technology, and we are cheaper.
You will not be able to sell that point.
Yeah, okay. But you
need an obvious thing that people, because that's not visible. To consumers, you cannot tell them that we have better technology, we are faster, because they wouldn't be able to verify that. Something that is obvious and verifiable. What is that? You need to think about that. I'm going to leave you with that question, but it is a question that you need to answer, otherwise you wouldn't be able to move people who are aware of cryptocurrency. You would not be able to move them into your exchange.
I will think about that. Thank you. And the exchange volume size, we have used Nomics, a crypto asset data company that have made some estimators for exchange. And right now in 2020, we see that 4.7 trillion USD are going through exchanges, and we estimate that will be 7.15 trillion in 2020. And if we look today, Indonesia and Asian market.
But these are top-down numbers. I think the real question is, how do you get your solution in the hands of a segment? Like, who is that segment that you can enter the market through and get, let's say, 1 million people to start transacting on your exchange? What is let's talk about how you're going to get this in the hands of 1 million people. I think that is the immediate next thing that you need to worry about, right?
Yeah, because we are trying to educate a lot. It's also, people are not so, what should I say, educated in the financial situation in Indonesia. So,
how many people in Indonesia are actually crypto educated, are transacting in crypto exchanges?
Yeah, it's pretty low. Remember, it's hard to look into the other exchanges, but we think that maybe 50,000 people are daily trading or something right now. But it will go up because we have been in the bear market for a long time, but we see now that the financial market is crashing, and people are also looking to alternatives.
So here, let me give you the blueprint of what you need to figure out next. And you will not have all these answers right away, but I'll give you the questions and you need to work on the answers.
Yeah.
Question number 1 is, do you make the decision to go after that 50,000 people who are transacting on crypto exchanges and try to convince them that come and use our exchange, MarketKoin, versus other exchanges that you've been using? And to do that, you need a positioning point on why MarketKoin is better than other exchanges, and faster technology, better technology is not that positioning point. So you need to come up with something that consumers can see, can easily wrap their arms around, and be able to make a choice, an informed choice. That's question number 1. Question number 2 is there, 50,000 is a very small number compared to the Indonesian population. So is there then another way to enter the market, going into people who are not on crypto exchanges at all yet, and educating that population and bringing them onto MarketKoin by using education as the primary way? So if education is your primary way to go to market and educate people on how to transact, what to do, and you can do that in the context of MarketKoin, that may be a way to go into an orthogonal population to the population that is already educated in cryptocurrency. And that may also be a viable strategy. But it is, for you, it's going to be one or the other for the moment.
These are very good questions. Thank you. And we also we have been looking into educational formula, and we're also trying to build courses right now to go out to the community. The problem is our focus.
And the other thing that you should think about, if you do education as your market entry strategy, then you should find use cases where you want this thing to, be the solution. So what is a use case that Indonesian consumers have a real problem around that cryptocurrency can solve?
And we actually have built that, but we have not pushed it out, used it in marketing yet, but we have trying to set up some use cases for young people who are students that need money from their parents. And there's a lot of islands in Indonesia, so they need to send money to each other. We see the remittances, money abroad. We see huge, also merchants. It's very decentralized in Indonesia. So with our app, you can actually just open an account, and then you can start taking in money. And that is also
but again, you need to do segmentation. What kind of money transfer do you want to plug into? Money transfer, peer-to-peer money transfer, small business money transfer. What is the use case of money transfer? Be very specific, be very segmented, and then do your customer acquisition around that particular segment. My problem with what I'm hearing is that things look very broad to me, and no one ever succeeds in bringing a new product to market by being broad. It is by being very precise, very specific, very segmented that people succeed in bringing new products to market.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah? Okay, good luck. When do you go back to Indonesia? You don't know yet.
Right now, I cannot really travel so much.
Well, good luck, stay safe, and I will explain to everybody how to use 1Mby1M next. I'm kind of skipping through your fundraising plans and so forth because I don't think you would succeed right now if you try to raise money without answering the kinds of questions I've asked you. So try to answer these questions and create fundability conditions. Fundability conditions are important to achieve before you go out to raise money. And without achieving fundability conditions, all you will face is lots of rejection, and it's very demoralizing. So you have homework to do before you can go out to raise money.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Okay. So folks, if you like what we do here, as you can see, it's very kind of cut and dry. We focus on how you can make your business operate better. And we are not trying to tell you, oh, here's a pat on the back, you're doing great. We're just basically figuring out what are the gaps, how do you plug those gaps, what do you need to do strategically to get to the next step. And if you like that approach, refer your entrepreneur friends and colleagues and family members to 1Mby1M, and we will be delighted to work with you. All our resources are online, virtual, at 1Mby1M.com. You can access it globally. We just talked to somebody from New York. We just talked to somebody from Denmark. So as you can see, and I'm sitting here in Menlo Park, California. Anyone from anywhere is welcome. And in these times of no travel, very minimal social contacts in person, this is the perfect way to work together and collaborate and get further. You will find, in terms of resources, you will find a terrific blog series that I strongly recommend you read, and it is free. You can also read the Entrepreneur Journeys book series. These are case study-based books, 12 to 16 case studies per book that deals with a particular topic. That could be bootstrapping with a paycheck, that could be positioning, that could be, e-commerce, whatever. But there are 12 volumes of Entrepreneur Journeys that you could read to get a sense of, where you can make a difference in how you run your business. As I said, we are on our 477th roundtable. So these free roundtables happen every week, and you're welcome to come to any of them and as many times as you would like to. Especially in these times, I recommend being with people who are in similar boats as you are, building companies, etc. I'm sorry, I thought Elly had dropped off. Is Elly still on the call?
I am, yes. I stayed for the pitch.
Sorry, I wanted, if you were around, I'm sorry, I misjudged it. I would have loved to hear, let's get back to you. I want to hear your thoughts about the pitch that we just heard. Let me just finish doing this segment, and then we'll come back to what you heard and what you thought of Nikolaj's pitch. So anyway, folks, in terms of resources, you have the full acceleration program, which is 1M by1M Premium, and we offer you extensive methodology guidance, step-by-step guidance. We have a digital curriculum that is completely accessible from anywhere in the world. We help you with business development. Our network is available to our premium members, whether that's investors, potential customers, channel partners, everything. We have similar sessions like this for strategy consulting, mentoring, coaching, whatever you want to term it, but it's basically working on your strategy. And we do help you with financing. Not just by joining the program, you will not get introductions into investors. We will provide introductions into investors, but you have to create those fundability conditions that I was talking about. Not everything is fundable. We were just talking about, Elly, that not everything is fundable. You know, like this perishable category that we were talking about is difficult to fund. So that's most likely going to have to be bootstrapped, and we recognize all that, and we advise you on all of those issues. We have lots of clout in the media, so we can get the word out about what you're doing. Go to the 1M1M self-assessment on our website. This is a series of questions that investors would ask you. Ask these questions of yourselves, and it will help you figure out your strategic plan. You are the first and most important investor in your business, so you should be able to answer these questions. If you get stuck, go to the 1M1M basic curriculum only option, and that will help you plug the knowledge gap that you have in answering these questions to a large extent. And, you know, the first-time entrepreneur's journey is extremely steep, so you are going to need to somehow or the other climb that knowledge curve and plug your gaps. You have to learn. You have to study. You have to learn. And we've just created a very efficient way of doing so through a very case study-driven program. So in any case, go into the website, dig around, look at the explanations of what to expect from the premium program, the basic program. There are video FAQs, a complete description of the curriculum. It is a case study-based curriculum. We have over 1,000 successful entrepreneur case studies, including 100-plus unicorns, 400-plus bootstrap companies, 400-plus venture-funded companies. Chances are, if you actually join the premium program, I very often point people to a set of case studies that closely resemble what they are doing. And you may be able to figure some of this out on your own just by doing 1M1M basic and the curriculum. And you know, today we talked about ButcherBox. Why? Because ButcherBox is contextual in the food business with very specific characteristics, and they have very specific strategies to address their challenges. So the case study-driven approach has worked very well for us. And our methodology is lean, capital-efficient, bootstrap startups, and the philosophy is bootstrap first, raise money later, because that's what is really improving your probability of being able to raise money. If you can validate, if you can show some traction, some customer feedback, monetization, etc., it's much, much easier to raise money than on a slide deck, which is almost impossible these days. So that's it. We are going to have free public mentoring roundtables every week. So at the moment, there's complete continuity. March, April, May, June, there should be no discontinuity at all in our free public roundtables. Come, discuss your issues, and we will spend as much time as you need to resolve and address those. In addition, every Tuesday morning, I do online live broadcasts on LinkedIn Facebook, and Twitter. I collect the questions we are getting from all our different touch points and answer them at these sessions. So feel free to come, listen, submit more questions, and I will process as many of them as I possibly can in upcoming sessions. So I'm extremely accessible. You're very welcome to come and discuss whatever it is that you wish to discuss anytime. We will go to open Q&A, but while you're lining up your questions, Elly, why don't you weigh in on Nikolaj's venture?
Sure. Yeah, you know, I think it's actually sometimes helpful to have an investor receive your pitch who's not in the industry that you would be typically pitching. And I say that in this case because I think he didn't necessarily frame the problem that he was addressing. So that would have been I think some of your feedback really was connected to just not really recognizing where is there a challenge, where does there need to be.
I think the missing link is the use case. I mean, instead of starting the pitch from the top down, we want to start this big exchange in Indonesia, currency exchange, cryptocurrency exchange in Indonesia. If you started from what is the use case, what is the problem this exchange will be solving, I think it would be a lot easier to talk to investors as well as convince the market, right?
Absolutely. And yeah, I think something just for any entrepreneur on the call to recognize is that, yes, you are walking into a room or sending and distributing your decks and presentations in many cases to specific investors, but don't skip over the contextualization and exactly that's the use case. I think that would have just automatically set up his pitch in a way that would have been more compelling.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. You know, this is, by the way, a very general advice for everybody. Use cases are the best ways to explain complex concepts. Use cases, real pain points, real issues in which your technology is contextual and relevant. And if you can't get to that specificity, it will be very difficult to get into market because you have to segment the market into a specific target audience to which this technology, this solution is relevant. And even in the earlier discussion we had, Elly, about food, I'm sure the segmentation principles, use case principles apply as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think always this goes for any business. If it takes too much explanation and there's no quick, simple point to make around how and why people need this in their lives or what it's offering that is, as you said, really of value and differentiated, then you've sort of lost your audience.
Yeah.
May I try last time?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, the concept, the vision for MarketKoin is to make transparent financial services that brings equality and sustainability in the modern society. Our mission
Too generic. Nikolaj, too generic. Try to get much more specific. And by the way, this is something we do extensively in the premium program is positioning tweaks. I am ruthless in driving our entrepreneurs to precision. So this is one of the things that we do the most within the program.
Okay. Sounds really good.
All right.
I should follow you more.
You're welcome. So let me introduce you to Irina Patterson on the 1M1M team. If you have questions about the program, you can definitely reach out to her and she will spend time with you on phone, Skype, email, whatever, answering your questions. And I think that's where we're going to stop today. By all means, come to as many of these sessions, use the recordings, and spend the time productively. We are going to be in this lockdown mode no matter where you are. If your geography is not yet in lockdown, it will be. Most likely, it's going to be a global lockdown for the foreseeable future, several months. So we have no choice but to keep making progress, keep putting one foot forward before the other, and keep doing business. So to the extent we can help you with strategy, with brainstorming, with empathy, with, just being there to talk to brainstorm with, we are very happy. As you saw the schedule, I'll put that up again once more. The best place is to bring your project to these roundtables, and we'll work on them. And, investors who come to these sessions as guests also are always willing to work with your strategies as well. So let's keep moving. Let's stay safe. Keep our families safe. The elderly in the families are particularly vulnerable. I have aging elderly parents in India, and I'm terrified, absolutely terrified. So let's not make any bones about the fact that it's a terrifying situation. So with all good wishes, lots of great vibes for everything, all positive outcomes, I will sign off today. Thank you, Elly, for being here, and we will see you next week, Tuesday morning on the LinkedIn Live, Facebook Live, Twitter Live sessions, or Thursday at these roundtables. See you soon. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.